Historic Murton, a walk down Murton Lane. Murton village dates back to before medieval times, and unusually for such a now urbanised environment, there are still many visible signs of this settlement, as well as of more recent activity. It takes you down Murton Lane from the corner with Brooklyn Terrace, New York, to the Robin Hood pub in the village. The first photograph is of the 1842 tithe map of Murton, showing the layout of the village and the course of the lane, and shows the curve in the road which runs down the medieval furlong. The photographs and walk start at the junction between Murton Lane and Brooklyn Terrace, New York Road, and continue on down the eastern side as far as the Robin Hood pub in the village. The blacksmith shop situated on the corner of Brooklyn Terrace and Murton Lane. The present building on this site was constructed in the first half of the 19th century, and the first accounts book for the business dates from 1854. The shop is an active and fully functioning business in the heart of New York Village, and is important both culturally and historically. An earlier building on the site, an inn called the Traveller's Rest, is shown on maps to have existed from at least 1778. Sited on an ancient crossroads which ran down Murton Lane to Bedlington and beyond on a medieval road called North Street. Looking down Murton Lane. King Edward I travelled on this road at least twice in the Middle Ages on his way to make war on the Scots. However, the site of the lane is even more ancient and was a road in the Saxon period before the Norman conquest of 1066, which linked the monasteries of Jarrow with Lindisfarne, now more commonly called Holy Island. We are looking down the eastern side of Murton Lane, which predates the western section. Behind us is the land of the former Shire Moor, the common land or grazing land of Tynemouth Priory. Before us lie the ancient fields of Murton village, which were never part of Shire Moor. As we will see later, the fields were ploughed by teams of oxen in early times and were divided into 4 farms, each of 42 acres. One of these farms was continually divided and rented to various tenants. The decoy station. This site, known locally as the piggery, was a decoy station during World War II. The aim of this station was to divert German bombing away from the River Tyne and its numerous shipbuilding yards. After the war, pigs were kept here, and it became a local landmark. The record books of New York, Murton Primary School, contain information about the air raids and how the children were affected. Hilly Holy Field. This field is vitally important in the history of Murton village. Here, medieval rig and furrow marks have survived, as elsewhere in these fields, because of having escaped extensive ploughing in later periods. The marks were created by oxen teams from the Middle Ages, ploughing and throwing up banks of earth which made a furrow or groove in which to set seeds or plants. Medieval farmers in Murton are recorded as having grown oats and beans in their fields. In this field, the ridges and furrows of the plough teams have been disturbed by mining subsidence, resulting in the unusual appearance of the land, hence the local name for the field. Murton Lane Farm. This piece of land, known locally as Piggy Bella's, after a local character who lived there during the early 20th century, is also covered by medieval rig and furrow. The earthworks here are of a cottage, marked on the Ordnance Survey map of 1858, which was rented, along with the field behind, to various tenants throughout the ages. This parcel of land is a division of the 4th ancient farm of Murton village. Behind the earthworks there can be found the outline of a well, used doubtlessly for both domestic and agricultural purposes throughout the ages. An example of a medieval furlong. We are now looking at an example of a bend around a medieval furlong. A furlong is a measurement of 220 yards, an eighth of a mile. The people who farmed the land in the Middle Ages, before around 1500 AD, walked on paths around their furlongs. Murton Lane has developed along an old pathway and follows its alignment. Other examples can be found along its length, which curls and twists around the ancient fossilised field plough marks. Sometimes sharp bends like this can be found on old lanes, even when the ancient rig and furrow marks have been ploughed away. But in the case of Murton Lane, they have remained, a remarkable survival, especially within an urban conurbation. The Charity Field. This field, known locally as the Charity Field, was allocated to St Bartholomew's Church, Long Benton, in 1739 under the will of Cuthbert Alder. Its proceeds were to be used to relieve poverty in the nearby village of Wheatslade. McCann's cottage site. The earthworks visible here are all that remains of a cottage shown on the Ordnance Survey map of 1868, known as McCann's, after a family who lived there until the 1950s. It is another division of the fourth ancient farm of Murton village. Behind the site of the cottage there are extensive examples of rig and furrow. From here there are clear views of the hedgerows created when the large open fields of medieval Murton village were enclosed or divided into smaller units in the 17th century. Behind the Robin Hood Inn. Behind the Robin Hood Inn there is a small field, another division of the fourth ancient farm. It was farmed in the 19th century by Luke Mason, one of the customers of Lewis Dunn, the blacksmith and farrier of New York village. The other complete farms were 1. Murton House Farm, 2. what is now the riding school, and 3. the former Watson's Farm. In conclusion, it is hoped that the short tour of Murton village will have been of interest. This historic landscape, and other similar examples around the country, is invaluable to people because it has developed over centuries and continually raises countless questions for the observer. In other words, it holds a sense of mystery and arouses curiosity and reflection.